Welcome back, everyone, to Insights on Leadership and Life. I'm your host, Roberta Pickett, and tonight we are talking about aging with grace with Wendy Ward and Virginia Manor. Thank you both for being here this evening. It's always fun to really get into a conversation about this stuff because it's interesting how it always seems to come back in so many of the topics we get onto about what's on the inside and about our attitude to things. What I'd like to talk about in this segment is what can people really do to age with grace? Are there things that they can do? You mentioned volunteering.
Getting out of your own way.
And getting out of your own way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else can people do?
Well, I work with people and teach classes and use art and creativity as a way to look at your own wisdom, your own inner, and learn about yourself. And as an example, I did this painting here on self-care. And so I worked with her, and when you do these kinds of paintings, then you start asking them, what can I do for self-care?
And when you say you're asking her or you're working with her, you're
Yes.
really talking about the inner person that's reflected there.
Yes. Yes.
You're seeing it as a part of your inner self,
Yes.
right? That's being wants to be out in the world.
Yes.
Interesting.
I call them helpers. I used to call them muses, but I'm starting to call them helpers now. And then I worked with her, and then I started journaling and asking, well, what are the questions, and she said, well, for you physically. And I think everybody has their own self-care, and for me, self-care means that if you're taking care of yourself, you can age gracefully because you are keeping an eye on what you need now.
So true, because so many, and especially with seniors, I mean, it's funny, I guess I'm a senior, but I think of myself as one. Oh, well.
Those seniors.
When you get that red, white, and blue card, you'll feel it.
I just got one. Oh, dear. Anyway, but it's true. I mean, if we don't take care of our nutrition, if we don't take care of our physical exercise, there are going to have other impacts on us that, are not necessarily so good. Or there might be illnesses or health issues that do impact.
Yes.
And that we don't have, like you were saying earlier, that we don't have a chance to change,
Right.
but we have to work around them and get the rest of our body as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
So your art, having people work through art to explore some of that is definitely a way. Then.
Yeah, and then getting answers for yourself. I think it's really, for me, it was like, okay, here's what can I do physically. I converse with her and say, what can I do physically, and what should I do mentally, and what should I do spirit-wise, because those are the three areas that I wanted. And then they give some information and work with that. So
it's really also being willing to listen to your inner wisdom. Because
Yes.
I mean, don't you think it's sometimes hard? It's like, what do you mean? Inner voices?
Yes. Yeah.
I was going to say, which voice?
Yes.
A little
several.
schizophrenic.
Might be a little different in the morning than at night.
Before my coffee or tea or after?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And speaking of that, she says one thing, but then there can be something else that says, this is why, why don't I do these things all the time? And there's certain obstacles and there's certain resistances. And, I think we all have that. So it's looking at that too.
And it's interesting because it can be through art. I know I do. I'm a coach, so I work with people to also work through those resistances or to explore what it is that may be holding them back or where they need to go or want to go that they're not quite confident enough to move forward on.
Right.
So it's interesting to hear that there's different ways to get to that, different modalities.
Yeah.
Music, I would imagine, is another one for people.
Or dance.
Or dance,
Yeah.
Now, Virginia, you work with your work on, both the seniors and the Council on Aging, and ATCA, there's a lot of work that you do work with senior. What about people who have disabilities or health issues? How can they age with grace?
Well, as I say, it's really, to me, it's a matter of accepting your circumstance, accepting it so that it's, you're not stuck in it, and then building out of it. How do I make that change? How do I survive in this mode of, being confined to a wheelchair or having diabetes, but I love sugar. I've always loved sugar. I don't have diabetes, but I mean people there's a lot of adult onset of diabetes, so that's very life-changing for people. They have to alter their whole lives, and it's, how do I work through that, and, how do I stay comfortable with who I am and still, feel that deep awareness, that I'm still moving forward in my life, that I'm not stuck there.
It seems to me as you're talking about that, it's like realizing that I am not just my body. That yes, I'm having some issues with my body or with my health, and yet there's more to me than that.
Right.
There's more substance than just this physical shell that we find ourselves in.
And for many people, it may be the loss of a spouse. And their life has been their children and their spouse, and haven't really given a lot of time to themselves. It was what they enjoyed doing or he enjoyed doing, and of course being in that role of being the wife. And now you're alone.
And how do you even look at that without feeling guilty or what?
Right. How do you move forward and reinvent yourself? And I find in the women that I have talked with, it was through friendship. Other women, and becoming involved and their friends helping lead them for a while, until they found it, and then they could participate in leading. And so women seem to gravitate to the nurturing of other women as they age and they have a loss.
Interesting with that too is that I think you can be held up by others and supported by others and as someone's going through something, and then
you move forward,
and then oftentimes you move into that role of maybe helping somebody else or supporting each other.
Exactly. But women seem to find that camaraderie so safe and nurturing for each other's needs.
Do you think men and women age differently?
Definitely.
In terms of their...
I do.
Yeah, I don't.
Do you think they start to look within and evaluate?
I kind of go back to the whether you're outer, not male or female, but whether you're more focused outwardly or if you're more focused on who I am. Because I think both sexes age and they could both have that impact of I want to grasp onto, what I was versus who I am inside.
And maybe the difference there is not so much that they don't age differently, but maybe, because of the nurturing aspect of women, we tend to have more, not always, but tend to have more support structures around us than men.
We have more discussion. We certainly have I mean, you've got Dr. Oz and you've got, you had Oprah, you have all these programs, and who watches them? Who participates in the audience? Very few men, mostly women. And so I think for men, sometimes wearing those comfortable old shoes and plaid shirt and, poking around, it's enough. They've worked hard all their lives. They feel it's really okay. I don't need to be or do more. Not all men, but I think where women are saying, okay, my children are grown now and I don't have a career and I can go do this and I can go do that. And yes, I think, and they discuss it with their friends. And I think that there's more communication that perhaps between women and women than men and men about those issues in life.
Yeah, and there's so many things that we can get involved in, so many things to keep us
Yes.
busy or active with, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I know when I first moved to Amador County, I thought, oh, it's a small community, there's not going to be a lot to do.
Yeah.
Oh my, was I wrong?
No.
There's more to do in any weekend than you possibly could do.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what are some of the things that are available out there?
Oh my goodness, we have theater,
Yeah.
and there's tremendous talent
To go in it or to participate in it, you know, to be
Both.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's music,
Yeah.
live music. That's always, when we have the summer series, oh, it's always so fun, you know, to go and to dance, maybe dance with the girls. You know, there's a lot of nature,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, going up and I have a paddle boat, and I love my paddle boat. And
Yeah,
I'll take it
I
out
still
and-
like to hike. Yeah.
Yes, and so there's girls' clubs for hiking, and a lot of men and women hike together. But I mean, travel, a lot of things you maybe just couldn't think about doing when you were younger, that now those possibilities are open.
Yeah, and I know and workshops. I mean, things like your art workshops,
Yes,
Lots of
a lot of
classes,
exploratory.
Yeah.
coaching. If you know, it's just
Yeah.
exploring yourself, looking
Right.
deeper within
Right.
who you are, and what are the possibilities.
Who is that woman in the mirror?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you're busy working, you know, it's hard to have that time to really, you know, who am I and what am I about? It's like your energy goes into working, you know, in corporate is what I'm referring to, that type.
Well,
That
it's
was
true
my-
with almost a lot of different works. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that work isn't satisfying,
Yes.
but
yes.
there's a lot of effort put towards it. So
Yeah.
time-wise, you
Yeah.
may not have as much.
Yeah. It's more where you've got, the reflection time isn't quite as,
Or we don't take
Yeah,
it at least.
yes.
Yeah.
It really is a privilege to work with seniors, so because there's so much you gain in
We're going to take a
strengths.
break and come back in just a minute and talk more.